Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bureau for Private Postsecondary Education's Advisory Committee meeting for the month of May. We are going to take a roll call, even though I know we don't quite have a quorum. It doesn't mean that we can't have the meeting, it just means we can't vote. So we will work on all agenda items that don't require a vote and hope that maybe we can get a quorum while we are waiting. So or while we are moving through those other items. So first, I'm going to do the roll call for the members that are here. Moderator or Richie, I'm not sure which one of you would do this. Will you just help with the roll call, please?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
So Lee Farron.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If we just want to wait one more minute, I do see that we just had one other member show up. So if we might have a better roll call in just 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
No, that's great. Oh, yes. Okay, I see. Okay.
And then this is the moderator. Let me go ahead and get a quick mic check from committee member Robert Boykin. Yes, we can. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to doing a committee member roll call.
Lee Farron.
Present, thank you.
Tess Krakier, she's absent. Robert Boykin.
Here.
Kansan Chu is not here. Melanie Delgado.
Here.
And Joseph Holt is absent. Robin Smith.
Here.
Tracy Tambasia.
Here.
Michael Zimmerman.
Present.
And that gives us a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, I have a few logistical remarks that I have to make before we get into the agenda item. So as usual, today's meeting will be run according to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act and the Brown Act. Under state rules, advisory committee members are required to visibly appear on camera during this meeting. Any members who are unable to be visible for reasons of technological impracticability, if you can tell that's from the statute, must announce the reason for their non-appearance when they turn off their camera. Since this meeting is being conducted via WebEx, all advisory committee members, please, and other speakers, please announce yourself by name before speaking, just for clarity of the record. All advisory committee members are able to unmute themselves to speak during the meeting, and please place yourself back on mute when not speaking. This will help ensure the best audio quality for everyone. We will ensure that all comments from advisory committee members and speakers that can be accommodated are heard before proceeding with the agenda. The advisory committee welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and the committee will ask for public comments on each agenda item prior to any potential action being taken. During each agenda item, the host moderating the WebEx will activate the Q&A feature of WebEx and will ask anyone wishing to make a public comment to indicate that they want to speak. The host will then call on individuals who wish to make public comment by the name that they joined the WebEx event. When called upon, the host will unmute the microphone and they will have 3 minutes to make their public comment. After the 3 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item is allowed per attendee. During agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda, the advisory committee has limited the total public comment period to 30 total minutes. Public comment on any other agenda item is limited to 20 total minutes. There will still be a 3-minute limit for each individual participant. And we will also check, not with every comment, but as long as we will check to make sure if there's anybody in person who wishes to make a comment as well. I just want to remind all speakers, please stay on topic and keep your comments to the allotted time. If members of the public have a question for the advisory committee or for the Bureau, as opposed to a comment, the best way to submit that comment is via email to bppe@dca.ca.gov. Okay, I'll probably say that a couple more times during this meeting, so that's not the only time you'll hear that email address, but that is the logistics. So first, let's get started with agenda item number 2, which is public comment for any item not on the agenda. So I will turn it over to the moderator to initiate the public comment.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, you can click that raise hand icon next to your name. And then if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. And I'll give a moment of pause to allow members of the public to indicate that they would like to make a public comment. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, and do we need to check with if for any in-person comments, is there anyone there? Or is that not something we need to worry about?
I'll let you know if that changes.
Awesome, that's great, thank you. Okay, then we are moving on to agenda item number 3, which is review and approval of the February 26, 2025 Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Any comments or corrections from the committee members? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting?
Move. This is member Michael Zimmerman.
Thank you. Any second?
Second, this is Robin Smith.
Thank you. Any public comment for agenda item number 3, the February meeting minutes?
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Then we just need a vote. So I'm going to just go down the list and just let's see. So we'll start with, well, I'll just start with myself. So Lee, aye. Tracy?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
Robin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Okay, great. The minutes for the February 26th are approved. We will move on to agenda item number 4, which is remarks by a representative of the Department of Consumer Affairs.
And we have Ryan Tasher joining us for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Tatcher from the Department of Consumer Affairs, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today. So I have a few things I'm going to talk about, starting off with the update on the governor's reorganization plan. So in January, Governor Newsom released his proposed 2025-26 state budget, which included a proposal to split DCA's oversight agency, the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency, into 2 state agencies, the California Housing and Homeless Agency and the Business and Consumer Services Agency. The proposed California Housing and Homelessness Agency, CHHA, will oversee housing and homelessness solutions and safeguard civil rights. The new Business and Consumer Services Agency will be responsible for consumer affairs, licensing, and enforcement. The Department of Consumer Affairs would be among the 8 departments in this new agency. As part of the process in state government, on April 4th, the governor's reorganization plan was delivered to the nonpartisan Little Hoover Commission for review. The submission of the plan to the commission began an approximate 90-day formal review process. The commission held public hearings on April 23rd and 24th to receive testimony and for interested parties to provide input on the proposed reorganization. Our agency secretary, DCA Director Kirkmeyer, and other impacted department leaders testified in support of the governor's plan and responded to questions from the commissioners. The Commission is in the process of writing a report that it will submit to the Governor and the Legislature. The Commission's report will offer a recommendation to the Governor and the Legislature as to whether it believes the reorganization plan should go into effect. The Commission sometimes offers recommendations for how the plan could be strengthened, either through administrative actions or subsequent legislation. The Legislature will then have 60 days to review and consider the reorganization plan. The Governor's plan becomes effective on the 61st day after it has been given to the Legislature, unless either the Senate or the Assembly adopts by a majority vote a resolution to reject the plan. If approved, the Business and Consumer Services Agency will be created in July 2025 with 1 year of transition and will become operative on July 1st, 2026. In addition to several virtual briefings hosted by Agency Secretary Moss, there's detailed information available on the reorganization plan on the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency website. We believe this is an extraordinary opportunity for DCA to better align with other consumer protection departments. A secretary within the Governor's cabinet focused solely on consumer protection will only strengthen our mission, momentum, and delivery of services to California. DCA will continue to keep board and bureau leadership updated on the progress of the Governor's reorganization plan. And the next topic I have here is about the return to office. So on March 3rd, 2025, Governor Newsom issued an executive order requiring all state agencies and departments to update their hybrid telework policies for employees and increase from 2 to 4 days in office per week, beginning on July 1st, 2025. On March 13th, the California Department of Human Resources issued guidance on implementation of the executive order. The guidance provides defined parameters for when agencies and departments can make case-by-case exceptions to the 4-day in-office minimum requirement. DCA has been working closely with a few programs on identifying additional space needed for this transition. DCA has been hosting bi-weekly meetings with board and bureau leadership to provide updates and respond to questions. We recognize that this transition will likely require adjustments for many employees, and we are working together to minimize the impacts. We will, of course, continue to keep leadership updated on any additional direction received from Cal HR. The next, I'd like to talk about our new Compliance and Equity Officer. So on April 28th, Levi Hull began serving as DCA's new Compliance and Equity Officer. In this position, he is responsible for leading and coordinating department-wide quality improvement efforts to ensure consistency and regulatory compliance. This position oversees DCA's solid planning and training services, the Organizational Improvement Office, the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, and the Internal Audit Office, and serves as the liaison to the department's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. As a department's equity officer, this position is dedicated to enhancing the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility policies, trainings, and activities throughout the department's programs. Mr. Hull brings more than 12 years of experience in leading multidisciplinary teams and driving strategic program development. With more than 9 years of experience in EEO compliance and program management, including nearly 3 years at DCA, he is an experienced leader with a deep commitment to fostering inclusive, equitable, and accessible work environments. Finally, each year during the first week in May, we celebrate Public Service Recognition Week. So I want to close with a special thank you to the Advisory Committee and Bureau staff for your hard work and dedicated efforts to achieve our mission of consumer protection. We are grateful for your partnership and applaud your extraordinary service each and every day. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions or comments from the committee members? I guess I have one question, and maybe this is not something that we can necessarily answer here, but in terms of the first topic you mentioned about the proposed split of the agency, do we know at this point what the impact would be on BPPE?
It should be a minimal impact.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, DCA would remain mostly unchanged. We might have, you know, a new agency secretary who could have some new priorities, but as far as initial direct impacts, it should be very minor.
Okay. And it wouldn't and financially it wouldn't, is there like, it wouldn't have any
Yeah,
impact at all, or?
It wouldn't change anything financially.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
If there aren't any other questions or comments, then thank you so much for being here and thank you for the update.
Thank
We'll
you.
move to public comment. I apologize before we close that item. We need to move to public comment for item number 4, remarks by a representative of the Department of Consumer Affairs.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, and audio only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to item 5, which is A through H Bureau Operations Update. Because these items are relatively unique, we will take public comment after each sub letter. So we'll start with item 5A, the IT system project update.
Great. And I will be giving that update for this meeting. I am excited to share after many years of IT system project updates, this update that we have been shooting for conversion from our old historical data system to a new system called Connect in early 2025. And we are now weeks away from adopting this new system, our first new system of record in over 25 years. Our team, both within the Bureau and the OIS team within DCA, have been working very hard to ensure that the new system's ready technically, that historical data are ready to be converted, and that our staff have the tools and job aids needed to work effectively on day one of the conversion. So internally, conversion will occur in mid-June, at which point our longstanding data system will be frozen for use as a historical resource only. We are anticipating opening Connect up to approved and registered institutions in August, which will allow institutions to review their records, pay annual fees, submit STRIP assessment reports, and in the future, submit all of their applications online. What our hopes is with the staggered rollout is that it'll allow our staff to become familiar with the system so that the team has a greater level of knowledge and comfort with it before we support institutions in doing the same. So more information will be provided to institutions about how to create and use accounts in the coming months. But for now, we are again on the cusp of a very exciting development, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
That is really exciting. I can't wait to hear in the August meeting when it's actually hopefully been rolled out. All right, any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, we will, thank you for the update. We will move it to public comment for item 5A, the IT system project date.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you. We will go to item 5B, which is the licensing update.
Good morning. This is Greg Donkerbrook, the licensing chief for the Bureau. The licensing unit has been very active over the last quarter, looking not only at our review processes and procedures, but also what resources we can continue to develop to make the approval process as painless as possible for our applicant institutions. We have started tracking and identifying common questions and inquiries that come into the licensing unit. These inquiries are helping us analyze where we need to improve to help schools be successful and continue to provide as help as necessary. As Debbie mentioned, the licensing unit has been heavily involved in getting ready for our transition to our new system of record this month. This involves daily review of data inaccuracies, identifying functionality issues, consistently testing the system to make sure we're ready to go. We are striving to ensure a smooth transition for all of our schools, and we really hope that we're going to see some positive things. As always, with anything presented here with licensing, I welcome suggestions or ideas from the committee that they might like to see in the future. Next slide, please. Thank you. First slide, similar to last quarter, it's a summary of all of our pending applications that currently reside within the Bureau. These numbers are still divided current quarter, fiscal year to date, and then also give a total at the end of the quarter, and they present all of the pending applications. Of all of our application types, we do continue to receive verifications of exemption in the greatest quantity. However, we did see the number of full approvals received more than double this quarter versus Q2 of this year. In addition, our total number of pending applications went up by 78 this quarter with the Bureau. Next slide is our application processing timeframes across all applications. Similar to the previous slide, columns are labeled average days to complete, which does include all adjudication outcomes, including denials and withdrawals. Also, for the current quarter, it shows both low and high number of days for processing approvals that were completed. We did see our average days to approve for full applications drop for both the current quarter and fiscal year to date, which is very encouraging. I'd also like to point out that if you look at our full approvals, we did have one application that sat around for 1,136 days to approval. However, if we take that out of our average, the approvals for this quarter only took 390 days, which is very encouraging as we move forward. This does help illustrate the level of variation present in our timelines and how our outliers and stagnant applications can impact those averages. With the transition to our new system of record this month, we are excited about the system allowing us to intake, review, and communicate with our applicant institutions more efficiently to help continue reducing our timelines. In fact, as we look at our application data for the approvals over the last 12 months, our full non-accredited applications that we've received in the new system were actually approved in over 130 days less time on average. We're highly encouraged by this, and we are hopeful as more of our application types become available for online submission that timeframes across the board will be reduced. Next slide just shows our locations. We've got a total of 1,535. Of those, we have 885 main locations, 306 branches, and 344 satellites. Of all of our locations, 387 are approved by means of accreditation. We have 498 full non-accredited approvals and 129 out-of-state registered institutions. And lastly, we've got our licensing workshops. For January, we saw 31 registrants and 30 participants. February, we saw 53 and 34, and March, 48 registrants with 31 participants. And it's important to note that in Q3 of this year, we had double the number of registrants and participants as Q2 of last year. So we're very excited. It seems more people are hopping online. We also, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, we're going to start tracking timeframes for institutions who attend our webinar versus not. And with that, I will take any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions or comments from committee members? Okay. Thank you for the update, and thank you for the note about tracking folks based on whether or not they attended the webinar. I feel like that'll be really interesting to see, maybe a motivating piece for folks to get approved if the times are faster.
Agreed. Yes,
Yeah.
we're looking forward to seeing that data.
Yeah. Okay, we'll open it up for public comment on item 5B, the licensing update.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. We will move to item 5C, the quality of education update.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ebony Santee, the Education Administrator for the Quality of Education Unit, and I have a few updates with information that we're tracking. Next slide, please. A few changes here. We've had 2 more institutions become accredited. We also had 2 more institutions, and this is since our last quarter, surrender their degree programs. And we now have 25 versus 27 of those institutions still pursuing accreditation. Next slide, please. Total institution count for those that have provisionally approved degree programs is 217. Of those, 73 have obtained accreditation, 21 have become exempt. 63 of those have closed. 44 schools have actually surrendered their degrees, and 16 of those programs have been suspended. Next slide, please. Just an overview of the agencies that have been represented by those schools that have become accredited. The small changes, 1 more for WASC Senior and 1 more for ACC-SC. And those are all the updates we have. Any questions from the committee or comments?
Either we're just very quiet or all the information you're providing is very clear, or both today. So I don't, any comments? 1 last minute. Okay, then we'll move to public comment for item 5C, the quality of education update. Thank you, Ebony.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment, you can click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will move to item 5D, the compliance and annual report update.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Eric Cassida, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today to provide my first update on the compliance and annual report units as the compliance chief. So that means you guys have to take it easy on me. And I was told that there would be no questions for me. But I'll begin first with the compliance unit. So I'm happy to report that the compliance unit is now fully staffed with the recent hire of Alexander Vang to serve as a compliance analyst on May 5th of this year. And next slide, please. Now we'll get into some of the program updates. The compliance unit increased the number of inspections in Q3 from Q2 by about 10% for a total of 116 inspections. And it should be noted that the Bureau has nearly exceeded the total number of inspections completed thus far in this fiscal year 24-25 in 3 quarters as we did in all of 23-24. So 323 to 309 they're depicted in the table. And next slide, please. We have conducted 180 unannounced inspections and 129 announced inspections. And staff assignments for the upcoming inspection period, so this current quarter that we're in, have already been made, and the majority have been designated as unannounced inspections. As we continue to conduct more unannounced inspections, institutions are reminded that they must have personnel scheduled to be present at all times. And during the normal business hours to provide Bureau staff with access to records during those inspections. And next slide, please. This slide represents the inspection results for the current fiscal year, categorized into announced and unannounced inspections. And inspection outcomes fall into the 4 categories. So no action taken, notice to comply, enforcement referral, and both NTC and an enforcement referral issued. And the key highlight here is that the key data highlight to highlight is that the unannounced inspections identify more instances of non-compliance compared to announced inspections, and this suggests that institutions are better prepared for announced inspections. So this kind of leads us to the conclusion that unannounced visits may provide a more accurate reflection of day-to-day compliance. And next slide, please. Just an update on the workshops. The Bureau continues to offer compliance workshops, which are held monthly. The next workshop is scheduled for June 19th. And we had really good attendance this last quarter. You can see there in the table that in March it peaked at 96 attendees, which is by far the most attendees we've had. And next slide, please. The Bureau, moving on to the annual report compliance unit update. The annual report compliance unit remains fully staffed. And just a brief update on the 2023 annual report. They were due on December 1st, 2024. And as of April 28th, 758 institutions had submitted their 2023 annual report, and 527 of those had been processed and are available on the Bureau's website. Institutions that have not submitted their reports are encouraged to do so, and staff are continuing to refer cases for possible enforcement action for failure to submit an annual report. And next slide, please. For the upcoming 2024 annual report, we are now in the early stages of preparation. The portal will open in August 2025 with a due date of December 1st, 2025. And as shown on the slide, the annual report includes 2 components: submission of institution data and documents via the annual report portal, as well as submission of financial statements by mail. And next slide, please. The Bureau continues to offer school performance fact sheet workshops to help institutions understand and comply with the relevant laws and regulations. And these interactive sessions provide valuable information, and we strongly encourage all institutions to participate. The next workshop is scheduled for June 20th, 2025, and institutions may register online at the Bureau's website. And we had really good attendance as well. In February, this last quarter, we had 43 attendees, which is, again, by far the most attendees we've had since July 2024. And lastly, I'd just like to take a moment to recognize the outstanding work of both the compliance and annual report units. Their dedication and attention to detail have been instrumental in moving our efforts forward here at the Bureau. And are there any questions from the committee?
Thank you so much, Eric, and welcome.
Thank you.
Committee members? Well, whoever promised you no questions, maybe it's actually come true. We'll give public comment an opportunity. We'll open up public comment for item 5D, the compliance and annual report update.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon. Or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thanks so much. I clicked the wrong button and muted myself. Sorry. We'll move to item 5E, the discipline update.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Renee Walters, and I serve as the Discipline Unit Manager for the Bureau. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I've been with the Bureau in various capacities since 2014, and this is my first time also presenting before the committee. This morning, I will be providing the Discipline Unit update for the 3rd quarter. So to start, I'll begin with the staff update. I'm pleased to report that the discipline unit is currently fully staffed. I'll now move on to the enforcement actions that took place during the third quarter. During the third quarter, the Bureau took 2 enforcement actions resulting from accusations filed against approved institutions. Accusations detail the grounds for disciplinary action based on violations of the Bureau's laws and regulations. The 2 actions that were taken in the third quarter include 1, default revocation. A default revocation occurs when an institution does not respond to a formal accusation filed by the Bureau, and the institution's approval to operate is revoked. And we also had 1 revocation as a result of an administrative hearing that was conducted to review the grounds for discipline outlined in an accusation. After the hearing, a proposed decision was issued which recommended revoking the institution's approval to operate. This proposed decision was formally adopted by the department, and the institution's approval to operate was revoked. Next slide. During the third quarter, the Bureau took 1 enforcement action resulting from a statement of issues, which is filed when an institution appeals the Bureau's decision to deny an application for either a new approval to operate or a renewal of an existing approval to operate. For this action, a hearing was conducted to review the causes for denial outlined in the statement of issues. After the hearing, a proposed decision was issued recommending to uphold the Bureau's denial. This proposed decision was formally adopted by the department, and the denial was upheld. Next slide. In quarter 3, the Bureau did not issue any emergency decisions or automatic suspensions. Next slide. And as of March 31st, 2025, the Bureau has 30 cases awaiting action at the Attorney General's office. Of these cases, 19 have been filed, are publicly available, and are currently pending adjudication. Next slide. Moving on to citations, the Bureau issued 89 citations in quarter 3, and we're on track to exceed the number of citations issued last fiscal year. The data further indicates that several institutions have been cited multiple times, with a total of 243 citations issued to 227 institutions. Next slide. All disciplinary actions can be found on the Bureau's website. And in closing, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and sincerely thank the discipline unit staff for their continued dedication and hard work throughout the third quarter. Their commitment to upholding the Bureau's standards and supporting its mission is truly appreciated. That concludes my update, and I would be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Renee, and welcome to an advisory committee meeting also. Any committee members have comments or questions? Okay. We'll move on to public comment for item 5E, the discipline update.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move to item 5F, the complaint and investigation update.
Good morning, Chair Farron and members of the committee. My name is Daniel Rangel. I'm the chief of our investigations unit. I will begin with a staffing update. There is one update for the complaint investigations unit. During the past quarter, one of our analysts departed to another agency for a promotional opportunity. I'm pleased to report that we have already completed the recruitment process for this vacancy and expect our new analyst to start in a few weeks. Next slide, please. In quarters 1 and 2 of this fiscal year, we received 288 and 265 complaints respectively. In quarter 3, we received slightly less at 261 complaints. Less complaints received is always a good sign. Next slide. The percentage breakdown for each category of the complaints received by school status have remained substantially consistent from quarter 1 through quarter 3. Next slide, please. In Q1 of this fiscal year, we completed 257 investigations. We followed that with a strong Q2 in which we completed 304 investigations. In Q3, we were able to improve upon that number by completing 349 investigations. We are currently on pace to complete just over 1,200 investigations by the end of this fiscal year, which would exceed last year's output by about 100 investigations. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the days to close investigations. At the request of Committee Member Holtz, we differentiated between complaints closed at intake versus through investigation. Aside from those closed at intake, complaints within 0 to 90 days and 1 to 2 years remain our highest ranges for closures at 166 and 176 respectively. Next slide, please. This slide reflects the number of complaints received at intake and the outcomes. The percentage of each category has mostly remained consistent from Q1 through Q3. In matters where the complaint is not within our jurisdiction, our team does a wonderful job of referring or redirecting complainants to the appropriate agency. To address a question from Committee Member Smith regarding referrals to the Student Loan Empowerment Network, I did confirm with our team that we are adding this entity to our referral agency list. Also to address your request for a breakdown of the basis for determining non-jurisdictional cases, we are working to pull some examples together to present at the next advisory committee meeting. So we appreciate your patience with that. Next slide, please. This slide shows the outcomes of cases that were investigated, excluding those that closed at intake. The breakdown of categories has remained considerably consistent from Q1 through Q3. Next slide. These are the top allegations referred to the discipline unit for investigations through Q3. Unapproved institutions continues to be our top allegation. Next slide. This is the breakdown of our pending caseload age. As stated at the last advisory committee meeting, we are really making a push to address our oldest cases in these in the last 2 quarters of this fiscal year, and expect to see a significant decrease in cases over 1 year by the end of the fiscal year. We are already seeing progress. At the end of Q2, there were 221 pending cases over 1 year old. At the end of Q3, there are 168 cases over 1 year, which is represented by those last 3 bars. Next slide, please. And with a very strong Q3, we were able to bring the number of pending cases down from 610 at the end of Q2 to 522 at the end of this Q3. Even more encouraging, as of this morning, we are at 492 pending cases. Next slide. And in closing, I would like to thank my team. Thank you for your commitment to continuous growth. Although progress is not always easily quantified, I see it in the work that you do daily. It is truly a pleasure to serve and lead you. And that concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Daniel. I just want to mention you can definitely see the change in the chart for the pending caseload age. So it's really cool that to see that chart like meeting over meeting, because you can see that progress. So kudos to you and the team. Any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, we'll move to public comment for item 5. Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm lost track of which item we're on now. Item 5F, the complaint and investigation update.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon. Or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 5G, the Office of Student Assistance and Relief update.
My name is Brian Vest, and I am the manager of the Office of Student Assistance and Relief, and I've been with the Bureau for 4 years now. This is also my first time presenting this data to you all, so thank you for having me here and allowing me the opportunity to report on OSOR's efforts to assist students. With that said, let's move to Chart A. So Chart A is the number of students we've touched during our proactive outreach, where our team goes out and participates in events that allow us to directly interact with students and to let them know about our services and what guidance we can provide them, so they can make informed choices about what is best for their education. These take place in community events like college and career fairs, health and resource fairs, industry events, as well as military and K-12 events. In this quarter, our numbers went up as we were able to interact with a large number of students in some events that have a significant turnout, like the Black College Expos and Steps to College events. Because of these larger events, we were able to more than double the total number of students we touched during this quarter as opposed to the previous 2 quarters, going from 844 students to 1,801. And then into Chart B. This is where we capture the data for school, branch, satellite, and program closures, where we have obtained a roster of students and their contact info or other sufficient information that staff have efforted to get in the absence of that roster from the school, and as such have been able to create an outreach effort through email usually, but also web posting and phone contact. We are trying to get that resource and those resources and information into the students' hands as quickly as possible. This outreach is often the first that then starts follow-up outreach in the form of other methods like our one-on-one appointments, webinars, or in-person workshops based on the students' responses during that this phase. These are the 6 schools in which we had information and were able to email the students, totaling 309 students. Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising was the largest closure during this quarter at 199 students. And then into Chart C, we report the closed school workshops that we've held. We hold these when there are school closures that warrant that response from us. For example, when a school closes abruptly and has a significant number of students that will be adversely affected, and then they respond to us, to our outreach, like I mentioned, the email outreach, where we're able to gauge the necessity and the desire of students to have us conduct a webinar or in-person workshop. As you can see, there were no entries during this quarter for this outreach format, as we were able to effectively conduct our outreach through phone, email, and one-on-one appointments with students. Next slide. In Chart D and E, we document the phone calls and emails we've received from students and the topics that were covered by category. Often these will be students calling in because they are searching for help filing a student tuition recovery fund application, assistance on student loan relief, school or program closure information, or transcript assistance. Also, our other forms of outreach can prompt students to contact us through phone and email, and that can be reflected in this data as well. So we have had a pretty consistent number of calls during this quarter, as in line with the previous quarters in our categories, and the email communications also reflect that. And then in Chart E, here focuses on our tracking of email communication, and they are also categorized in the same manner as the phone calls. Our contact with students here is also pretty consistent with the phone calls, with a slight bump on the email communication related assistance on STRIF claim applications. Next slide, please. For Chart F, in addition to the other outreach types that we do, if the students prefer to have a meeting in a one-on-one setting with our team members, they can request that an appointment from our staff as well. Often it is more effective to provide a large number of students the information about their rights in a webinar or workshop, but in the case where students need very specific information for their unique situation, student appointments prove to be most effective. So we set these appointments up where we can provide them very in-depth responses and research for students and track those numbers here. And with that, I want to conclude by thanking all of our OSO staff for their hard work. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from the committee members or comments? Okay, then we will move to public comment for item 5G, the Office of Student Assistance and Relief update.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon. Or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for the report. We will move on to item 5H, the Student Tuition Recovery Fund.
Good morning, Chair Farron and committee members. I'm Yvette Johnson, the Chief of the Student Tuition Recovery Fund Unit, and we're also known as STRIF. As a staffing update, I want to say that we are currently recruiting an office technician. Our office technician is an important role within the unit, as it is the person that's responsible for bringing in all of the student tuition recovery fund applications and make sure they get to the place they need to be so they can be processed. So we're diligently recruiting for that role. The team continues to work diligently in processing STRIF applications. It's a small team, as I've told you guys before, and every member of the team is dedicated to assisting students affected by school closures and recovering their tuition if they're eligible. Next slide, please. So here are some of our statistics for the third quarter. The past quarter, the number of claims received dropped, which is a good thing. That means there were no large school closures or anything. And as you can see, we are continuing to receive more claims via Connect and fewer claims via paper. So really with OSAR and others out there pushing the availability of Connect to file STRIF claims, it is making a difference. Next slide, please. For claims received, you may notice that this slide looks a little bit different. We added in this slide for the claims approved, we actually added the amount of the claims that have been approved over the quarter. Before we just used to give the number, but now you're able to associate the number of claims with the amount that has been approved. The next part is the claims that were ineligible, denied, or unable to contact. For claims that are ineligible, these mean that the students did not meet any of the eligibility criteria for STRIF. For claims that are denied, these are claims that were denied that were submitted by students. However, we were not able to find that there was an economic loss. And for the unable to contact claims, these are the staff have reviewed the claims. However, they found that the claims were deficient and they send out a notice to the student to say, hey, you have information missing, so can you please send it to us? And unfortunately, the student never responded. So with these claims, they're closed, but the students, if they decide to contact us or if they have more information and they send it to us, the claim can be reopened. Next slide. This is the status of our current claims. The analyst first review complete. That means that the analysts have reviewed the claim. That's 118. And they have made a recommendation to the manager, and it is pending the manager's review. For the analyst review, these are active claims that the analyst is currently working, and the analysts have 89 of those claims at the end of quarter 3. And the waiting for student response, these are claims that the analysts have reviewed and has determined that there is information missing. So they've sent some type of communication out to the student, whether it be a letter, email, contacted them via phone. We use all sorts of communication, and we're just waiting for the student to respond so that they can continue processing the application. In queue, there are 432 claims, and I would like to note that this is down from 565 in the last quarter. Next slide, please. So when a claim is deemed eligible and the students to be paid, a check is requested from the state controller's office. So for this past quarter, there were 75 claims. There are 75 claims pending at the state controller's office for over $1 million. And we're just waiting for those to be paid out. But I'm happy to say that in this third quarter as well, that we actually paid out 79 claims for the amount of $1,351,734.33. And that's the state of the current fund balance. And this last slide is a listing of our large impact closures. And fortunately, we can say that the list has not changed. So there have been no more large closures. That's what we have right now. Once again, I want to do a big shout out to the STRIF unit. Each and every member is dedicated and continues to work hard and doing our process improvements. And I believe that their efforts show through the numbers and the number of students that we're able to assist. And I welcome questions from the committee.
Thank you, Yvette. It's really cool to see people using the electronic system more. Any questions or comments from the committee members?
Thank you, Yvette. This is great. I just want to say also, since you're the last person reporting today, I really appreciate everyone's reports, and I'm really happy to hear so many of you are fully staffed. It's fantastic. So thanks.
Thank you, Robin.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, then we'll move to public comment for item 5H, the Student Tuition Recovery Fund update.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can press *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving quite quickly this morning, which is a good thing. So I think I'm just going to keep going. If any committee members need a short break, please let me know. But I think we're only about an hour in, so I'm going to just keep going for now. We'll see how long these next few items take. We'll go to agenda item 6, which is the status update and discussion related to the following two different regulatory matters.
Hi, Lee. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? Hi, my name is Parker Strohmeyer. I'm the Bureau's regulations specialist. I've been with the Bureau since December 2020. And today I'm providing some status updates, both about just general dates and updates, as well as discussion about 2 of our regulatory packages. So first, on this regulations tracker, I want to highlight that our expired approvals package has been approved by the Office of Administrative Law and was filed with the Secretary of State on May 20th, 2025. Packages that are filed before May 30th become effective July 1st of that year. And so this package will be effective July 1st of 2025. So as you can see from all of the dates, this has been going since 2023. So I'm very happy to be able to report that that one is through and is effective, and the final documents will be posted on our website. And this is my shameless plug for the Bureau's laws and regulations page, which is on our website. And I encourage everyone to remain apprised of the information that's on that page. The next update that I wanted to provide is an update on the minimum operating standards refund policies, which of course we're going to have discussion on later. That public comment period concluded after we last met and concluded on April 1st, 2025. We did receive public comments during that comment period, and we're currently exploring modifying the text for that package. The third update, also since our last meeting was related to unapproved activity, which we've been working on our initial statement of reasons, and we submitted documents to DCA. And last but not least, also related to something we'll be discussing more in depth here shortly, is our catalog requirements, which we've been working hard with Bureau staff, management. We brought the memo to our last advisory committee discussion, and today we're going to be presenting some proposed text for that package. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of really great updates, a lot of hard work going on here at the Bureau. And so I'm happy to report on all of those status updates for our tracker. Are there any questions from members of the committee before I go into our two larger discussion points?
I think you can go ahead. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, so our item 6A with refund policies, as I stated earlier, the public comment period concluded. We received public comments, and based on those comments received, we are going through and exploring this package, thinking about the modifications that may be necessary for us to promulgate the best regulations that we can as it concerns refund policies. So in the meeting materials, there's a copy of the modified text. I wanted to briefly walk through those changes that we are proposing, and then open it up to committee member questions. I also do want to just say that if there is something urgent and you'd like to interrupt me, I am fine with that as well. So there are 4 sections. They're listed here on the screen: 70,000, a new section 71746, 71750, and a new section 71751. Modifications to section 70,000 include modifying our definition of pro rata refund. Instead of the definition being based on the proportion of the educational program completed, we are proposing to change that language to period of attendance, because feedback received during the public comment period indicated that the language used in statute, specifically at California Education Code sections 94919C and 94920D, require pro rata refunds to be calculated based on the completion of the period of attendance rather than the entire program. So the Bureau has proposed to make this change for clarity and ensuring that the definition of pro rata refund is consistent with those 2 other sections. The next change is to section 71746. Comments received during the public comment period suggested that regulations require that institutions provide documentation for students for refunds issued. And this comment pertained to the 2 other sections in this package, 750 and 751. However, if we're looking at the entire package, the package as a whole, we are also adding the same type of documentation to 71746, that a copy of the refund documentation, which is required to be maintained in the student file, be provided to the student if they complete their educational program and are due a refund. A reference to the regulatory section, section 71920 was added because that section specifies that a document specifying the refund must be maintained in the student's file for any student who completes their program. Additionally, in subsection B, we are proposing to remove the language of collecting total charges because it could potentially be made clearer to simply say institutions and have the requirement be applied to institutions when they receive a payment from or on behalf of a student, and making the modified regulations clearer than the initially proposed regulations. Adding within 5 business days into subsection B into the modified text was based on a suggestion which proposed adding within 5 days to the beginning of 71746B. We proposed to add 5 business days to use this because it provides a clear standard time in which a business has to provide a receipt to students for payments made. The addition of an updated student ledger was made to address institutions that utilize a ledger card system to document payments from students. By adding updated student ledger as another option for an institution to provide records of payments made by or on behalf of a student, institutions using ledgers can comply with the regulatory requirement, and students will have records of the payments that they make. The use of the word updated ensures that the regulatory standard the Bureau is proposing will guarantee that students receive the most current information documenting the payments that they have made or have been made on their behalf. And finally, with section 71746, again, comments received suggested adding certain items that need to be included on the receipt, including the date and amount of the payment and the payer. We believe that these suggestions could improve the clarity of the proposed regulations, and we've also suggested adding description of the payment to address scenarios in which one payment may be for tuition, but another may be for fees, housing, equipment, or other institutional charges. Moving on to section 71750, we've proposed to add language at C, 71750C. And specifically, we have proposed to provide the students a document similar to what we proposed in 71746, that if they're issued a refund for cancellation, that a document be provided to the student that details how that refund was calculated. Modifying the proposed text of the regulations that include the amount of the refund, a method of the calculation, the date of the refund, and the person or entity to which the refund was sent is essential information that allows a student to know that their refunds were issued and calculated correctly and have the substantiation to know whether or not they need to work further with the institution, dispute the refund amount, know that it was calculated correctly, hopefully, and if necessary, file a complaint. We've also proposed to add subsection C1 to 71750. And this specifically was because of a comment that suggested that we add, if a refund is issued to a third party, that we provide students with that documentation showing how that refund was made. And so we recognize that refunds issued to third parties may need additional specificity to clarify that the substantiation of the refund issued to a third party needs to be sent to the student. And that's similar to the change being proposed in C. We're proposing to add C1 instead of a new subsection such as subsection E, because the requirement is related to the documentation substantiating how the refund was calculated. And the substantial difference with third-party payers is that the refund goes to third parties, but in this case, the documentation as to how that refund was calculated should go to the student because they're still the ones that need that information. The comments also suggested requiring an institution to provide this notice within 5 days of issuing a refund to a third party. The Bureau is proposing that both refunds issued and the documentation for them be on the same 45-day timeframe in which an institution must provide a refund. This minimizes the possibility that an institution issues a refund on day 45 and then takes another 5 days to provide the substantiation. With our language, the student will or should have both the refund and the written notice substantiating that refund within 45 days of their cancellation. If we look at the modified text in 71751, again, we are proposing to add C and C1. This is by and large the same type of change, just pertaining to refunds. So if a refund is issued to a student who withdraws from their program, it should be provided a document specifying how that refund is calculated. And if a student withdraws and a third party paid for their institutional charges, while the refund may be issued to the third party, the student does need to know that, like, how that refund was calculated. And so similar changes are made to 71751 at subsection C and then adding subsection C1. So thank you for listening to my explanation of all of those changes. I appreciate the patience. I'd like to pause there and open it up to questions from the committee members. Thank you.
you so much for that summary. That was not easy. That's quite complicated, but I'm really happy to hear about a lot of the student-facing changes that will really, I think, help the people we represent and borrowers understand sort of what's happening with the refunds, and it's I think, very helpful to them. One question I have is are these now proposed? Is there going to be another round of comments, or are these final?
Yeah, great question. So anytime that we do a modified text, well, let me actually back up a little. When we notice a package for the 45 days, it starts a year clock that we have to get the package approved by the Office of Administrative Law. And if we were to do a modified text that we're exploring now, we work to draft copies of the modifications to the text, and then we post them for an additional 15-day comment period. And then members of the public can comment specifically on those modified changes. And so this package, if we do modified text, and which that is the direction we're heading, that will be on our website, and there will be a notice, listserv blast sent out indicating that a 15-day public comment period has opened.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members? I'll just say I echo Robin's comment about this making it very helpful for students who are often fighting debt collection to get the information that they actually need. So from external parties, not the institution. So I think this is really helpful. Okay, we will move. Well, actually, yeah, let's do public comment on 6A. I think that they're two separate things. So I think that's easier. So let's do public comment for agenda item 6A, the modified text for the minimum operating standards.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can press *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Then we can move to item 6B, the next regulatory matter. Parker.
Thank you, Chair Farron. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak on catalog requirements. Another topic that, for me personally, I can say I'm always excited to talk about and be thinking about how our catalogs work. So just from a personal side, I'm really interested in this package and have found it very invigorating to be thinking about and exploring, the problems that exist with our catalog requirements and the solutions that we can pursue to solve them. So as I stated actually at our last meeting, when we presented a memo, school catalogs serve as an annual disclosure tool, and they inform students, they inform the public, other stakeholders about educational programs, financial aid, academic standards, school policies, and more. And as the Bureau, we want these requirements in catalogs to be useful, specific, and clear so that they serve their purpose effectively in disclosing information to students and the public. There are 3 areas of consideration for the Bureau when we are revising our regulatory requirements around school catalogs. First, there is a need for additional specificity and exploring what areas could additional specificity be necessary to ensure that students have access to needed information, records, and services. Second, how can information in the catalog be more clearly organized, structured, or written so that they are more easily understood by the regulated community when a school goes and looks at our catalog requirements and our regulations, wondering what they should be doing? And finally, what areas of the catalog can be examined to ensure that all required disclosures in the catalog are necessary and useful for consumers? So at this point, I do want to just note that there is proposed text in the meeting materials. And so similar to the refund policies, if there's anything particularly pressing, please feel free to just chime in and interrupt, I'm happy to pause. But I'll walk through the changes that we are proposing to CCR section 71810. And then we'll happily answer any questions and receive feedback from members of the committee. So first of all, changes to 71810A align Bureau requirements with accreditor standards by allowing updates directly to a catalog, in addition to supplements or inserts as permitted. Clear organization into 3 subsections, A1, 2, and 3, allows for easier understanding of the regulation and adds needed specificity to address services across multiple locations. Changes to 71810B3 and B4 impact international students and those students with limited English proficiency, highlighting the need for accessible information to support those students' rights in academic success. The Bureau proposes that institutions designate a principal designated school official, a PDSO, for international students' resources. Any institution that admits students from another country is required to have a PDSO. Additionally, defining the required English language proficiency for each program ensures that all students meet the necessary standards for their particular educational program. The Bureau proposes adding language throughout subsection B to address access to student records and administrative services by adding the hours of availability and policies and procedures for student access to those resources and services. This includes the institution's normal business hours to encompass primary administrative hours where records are available for inspection, as well as the institution's hours of instruction and hours of available student services. Disclosing hours of available services, administration, instruction, and other critical functions of an institution is essential not only for students, but general members of the public. Now, if you're looking really closely at the proposed text, you will notice that the requirement to disclose business hours is in B13, and that is replacing the existing requirement to disclose various institutional housing services or a lack thereof, and to disclose the availability of housing near the institution and an approximate cost or range of costs of the housing available. The existing requirement to disclose this housing information is found only in regulation and does not differentiate between the cost of owning or renting. The vast majority of Bureau-approved institutions do not offer housing. And so as a result, the Bureau has examined whether this requirement provides the best housing-related information to students and has proposed to remove the existing requirement. And the Bureau also proposes to add a new subsection B16, right below B15, to the catalog requirements to clarify the education code, section 94909, subsection A5. Institutions must specify under the statutory section if internships or externships are required for program completion and their distance, or are required for program completion. And so we are proposing to add the distance from the institution and also a statement about any other requirements or limitations for successful completion. That helps to ensure that other unpredictable circumstances are disclosed in that catalog. And so that is our proposed text for this regulatory package at this time. The Bureau welcomes feedback and comments on the proposed text from the committee, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and questions. So I'll pause there.
Just want to say I also appreciate the proposed changes, especially relating to student records, because I know both those of us that work with students and the students themselves often have a very hard time figuring out where they go to inspect their records, who they request it from. So that's particularly really helpful, and I support all the other changes as well.
Yeah, I'll echo Robin's comments on this and the minimum operating standards for financial responsibility. I'm curious if there's any specific information on how the regulations will affect institutions that serve primarily online students, where there may not be a physical location that's near them, but they do have access to certain services. Just curious if there's any differentiation in that on how we can best make sure they know what's available to them.
I think that the statutory requirement I do know needs a detailed description of an educational program, but certainly examining, distance education and hybrid is something we can continue to look at.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions from members of the committee, I do have a couple of just discussion questions that I was hoping to maybe just get some feedback on. I recognize that some of our institutional reps are not here today, but I was curious about really just a couple of things. We use the word normal business hours. The word normal business hours is currently used 4 times in our regulations. 3 of those times are in section 71920, which is related to student records. And then the 4th time is in retention of student advertising. And so I'm curious if the use of the word normal business hours has any specific meaning for institutions as compared to just, say, business hours without the qualifier normal. And do members of the committee have a preference on the use of the word normal?
A great question. From an institutional perspective, we have classes running from 8 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. But as far as a student accessing the records, that request would probably be more. We'd probably be better served to respond to that between 9 and 5, knowing when we have a registrar or other kind of relevant staff there, rather than just faculty or security or something like that. So for me at least, I would say normal business hours would be a 9 to 5 scenario. But I'm curious what the rest of the committee might think.
This is Tracy Tambasia. I think that's a great question. I would remove the word normal because business hours per institution are their business hours. And as Michael was saying, I think they do vary depending on the population served and when courses are offered. And so I would personally like to see more institutions have business hours beyond the 9 to 5 framing. So anyway, removing normal, I think, makes a lot of sense.
You both.
Without specifically answering the question, because I guess that's what I'm going to do. I'm wondering too, because we are missing Joseph and Tess. I'm wondering if when is this, because I know we're right now just at the ACM discussion. When does it go to DCA? And would there be an opportunity for folks to provide written comment after the meeting as well, if they had input for you?
I think at this point, there is the regulations process can go for so long that right now we are in that exploratory phase, thinking about how the text is going to work, thinking about what possible justifications we have for the changes that we want to make.
Okay, great. I just figured it because they may have other, I mean, I don't know that their opinions would differ all that much from Michael and Tracy, but I feel like it might be helpful just for them to flag it for them as well. So I can do that. Any other questions or comments from committee members on that particular question? I know Parker has others too, but just on that one. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So my other question really is about the use of we're proposing to add policies and procedures, and this is really in various parts of subsection B. And when we were going through looking at the text, we noticed that there's certain areas that say policies, and there's certain areas that say policies and procedures. And so we're really looking at these 2 different terms. And so my question for the committee members would be, have we seen that institutions tend to think about these terms interchangeably, or do we see a difference between the 2, between policies and procedures?
If I might provide the institutional perspective again, we definitely see a difference between policy and procedure. For us, our policies are designed to show that the institution is meeting the ultimate compliance goal. For example, the refund calculation or timeline we talked about earlier, 45 days. Putting that in policy that my institution will refund all monies due within 45 days, full stop. But the the procedure part, we refer to them as just standard operating procedures. Those are like key internal documents that we use mostly for ensuring our staff or training our staff on these are the steps you need to take to ensure that we are in compliance with the required policy or whatever policy we might choose to take. So for us, we definitely see those as differently. If we were required to include all of our standard operating procedures in the catalog, I think it would be a lot of information that is not really relevant to the students that might maybe make them miss maybe more important elements personally.
I think that's a valuable perspective, Mr. Zimmerman. And if I may also just follow up and ask, with our policies and procedures and our regulations, they're really public facing or student facing, so like if a student needs policies and procedures for student services or libraries or something, do you have, or your institution have policies, or excuse me, procedures forward facing for students for access to those resources?
Yeah, we would have something like that, but it'd be such like a short thing, like contact the career services department or contact your success coach. That's basically the step. We try to have as little amount of friction as possible in the students accessing those kinds of services. So it's pretty direct and to the point.
Okay. Thank you. Chair Farron, I have one more question, but I'd like to just give you a chance if anyone else has feedback before I proceed.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question that I have was just about multiple locations. So in 71810 as well as B16, we've added language to address multiple locations. So in A, it's if services differ from location to location. And in B16, it's about internships and externships. Is there anything else that would be critical to consider with multiple locations, whether it's from an institutional side, a student side, or the general public? Is there anything else that we should be considering with multiple locations?
That's a good question. I think the biggest one that would come to my mind is the availability of externship sites, just because I think that is often a challenge for students, and that they see something somewhere, maybe in general in a catalog, they're going to be placing their externship, then they decide to go to some location, maybe that's a far distance away from the externship site, and somehow they're stuck trying to figure out how they're going to travel 2 hours 5 days a week to an externship site. So my really only feedback I'd say is really to highlight the importance of clearly explaining externships on a per location basis, just because those are so critical for students to be able to get licensed or certified in pretty much every instance. And then, maybe much less important, maybe as a consideration of how those business hours apply to various locations. We're well into the 21st century now. It shouldn't be this way. But if some institution says, well, your records are physically stored at this location and not at this one, that might be important information for a student to know as well.
Good point. Thank you.
This is Tracy Tambasia. I have a question for Parker. Are we talking about item 16 in your notes about changes?
Yeah, so with multiple locations, there's really two subsections in our proposed text that address it. It's 71810A, where if services differ from location to location, they need to be specified. And then B16 is specifically related to internships or externships.
Okay, so my comment, and I don't know if I'm if I'm understanding your question correctly, in terms of B16, I think it makes sense that students need to understand the distance or the location of externships, but just from a practical perspective, I don't know if that lives in the catalog. Just because catalogs tend to be more fixed, I know nowadays we have digital versions and they can be updated, but my sense is that externship or internship locations may change or vary from year to year, term to term. And so I think requiring disclosure makes sense, but I'm not sure if that lives in the catalog.
Okay. I will say to that, we have to put some stuff in there because of the statutory requirement, but I do think that that perspective is valuable as well. So thank you.
I just have a couple comments too. I appreciate Michael's raising of student records, and I do think the distance education and the location issue is important. That if the records aren't at a student's location or are online, how do they have access to those? That's a really important question. If it's too far for them to get, it seems like there should be more information about can they get those records, an digital copy of them. I mean, how do they get those records? So I think just something to think about whether that can be addressed in the catalog. And I think having information at least about the expected distance of externships or internships is really helpful, because I've had a lot of borrowers who are told it will be within 5 miles and then they find out it's 20 and they can't get there unless they take multiple buses. So just knowing information at least about the distance of those is very helpful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, no more questions from my end. If there's no other questions for me or comments on this, just once again, thank you so much for the time. And similar to how other people have done, I just want to say thank you to everyone who helps to support me in my role and provides feedback and helps me to do my job to get the regulations through DCA all the way through OAL and effective. So yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, I'll mute my mic now. Thanks again.
Thank you, Parker. And thank you for walking through all of that. You did an excellent job explaining all of it and helping us get the information we need. So we will open it up for public comment on item 6B, the proposed text for catalog requirements.
All right, this is the moderator. For members of the public on WebEx, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can press *3 on your device. All right, and it does look like we have requests for public comment from Sarah Beepsa. And Sarah, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
My name is Sarah Boivsa. I'm with the Institute for College Access and Success. I'm here today to share support for the proposed language changes around standard operating procedures, particularly around refund policies and expired approvals. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other public comments?
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Parker. And I just want to acknowledge we had one more representative join, Kevin Powers. Thank you so much for being here today. We'll move on to item number 7, the May revise budget update.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Dragoo, and I'm a budget manager with DCA's budget office. I am pleased to join you today to provide a brief update related to the governor's May revise. In recent years, the Bureau has encountered a structural deficit, meaning that its expenditures exceeded revenues, requiring reliance on temporary financial measures to stay solvent. To explore solutions for the legislature's consideration, the Bureau previously contracted with the Foundation for California Community Colleges. The Foundation provided recommendations which were published in the January 2024 Bureau for Private Postsecondary Education Funding Study. In alignment with one of the recommendations, I am pleased to provide an update to the Advisory Committee regarding the Bureau's May revision request trailer bill language that proposes to shift approximately $2.7 million of appropriation related to the administration of STRIF claims and the Office of Student Assistance in Relief from the Private Postsecondary Education Administration Fund to the Student Tuition Recovery Fund. This recommendation was endorsed by the Bureau, given the purpose of the STRIF fund with the functions these operational units play in supporting students. If passed, the shortfall will be reduced enough to allow the Bureau's administrative fund to remain solvent through fiscal year 26-27 ahead of the Bureau's sunset review process, where additional discussions regarding the Bureau's broader fund solvency can take place. The Bureau presented the proposal to the legislature at the Senate Subcommittee 1 on Education hearing held on May 21st, 2025, and it is currently being held open. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Nicole. Any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, hearing none, we will move to public comment for item 7, the May revised budget update.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and I have a request from Sarah again, and Sarah, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hi, this is Sarah Bobibsa again with the Institute for College Access and Success. We just want to provide our support for the statutory changes included in the governor's May revision to begin addressing the structural deficit facing the Bureau, and we will be urging the legislature to adopt these actions. We see these as a first step in ensuring the Bureau can continue to effectively protect and assist students. And this is a particularly critical factor during this time when we expect federal deregulation and loosening of oversight over private post-secondary, private proprietary institutions. So we look forward to working with you on getting this over the finish line through the budget process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
This is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. We're moving on to item 8, the presentation by the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, or DFPI, on the registration requirements for providers of post-secondary education financing.
Wonderful. And I'm just going to briefly introduce our colleagues at DFPI. I know there's been some changes that took place earlier this year, and we've been trying to do everything we can to support them as our regulatory partners in the space to helping them get the word out to the private post-secondary educational space. So I'm very grateful that they were able to be here. I think our institutions, anyone watching and the ones that are approved by BPPE will find this an interesting presentation and hopefully learn something. And again, I just am very appreciative of DFPI's willingness to be here. So with that, I will turn it over to Markel Kelly and Sam Park.
Thank you, Debbie and BPPE staff. Good morning. I am Markel Kelly, and I hold the role of the Deputy Commissioner of the Supervision and Registration of New Covered Persons Program at the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. The New Covered Persons Program handles matters pertaining to the California Consumer Financial Protection Law. This includes registration, examinations, annual reporting, and other supervision functions. I was looking at the screen to see if were we able to get slides in or no? There we go. Next slide, please. And as Debbie alluded to, I'm also joined by Sam Park, who is our senior counsel in our DFPI's legal division. Want to start by giving our routine disclaimers. While I am representing the DFPI today, nothing discussed in this presentation is meant to be construed as legal advice. So institutions should seek their own legal counsel when making decisions related to the matters discussed today. I'd also like to ask, which seems like it's normal in this forum, but I want to hold all questions until the end of the presentation. I'm going to provide a lot of information, and we received a lot of common questions that I will provide answers to at the end. So I'm hoping that I answer most of the questions that you may have coming in, but if not, there will be opportunity to ask questions at the end. Next slide. What I plan to go over today, we received a lot of comments that in the education financing space did not know the CCFPL existed, did not know anything about the registration regulations. So I'm going to provide a little bit of background about the CCFPL and DFPI's first registration rulemaking package under the CCFPL. And then we'll get into education financing specifically and who is actually required to register when offering or providing education financing. And then we'll get to those commonly asked questions that we received and provide some answers to those, followed by Q&A. Next slide. So in regards to the California Consumer Financial Protection Law, it became effective on January 1st of 2021, and it provided the DFPI with broad and expanded supervision and enforcement authority at the state level. This included an oversight over a wide spread of commercial financial products and services that were not previously regulated by the department and historically were not regulated in California. It also gave the department the ability to require registration for certain financial products and services through the rulemaking process. Now, registration, we use the term registration. It's basically the same as licensing. It's just a lighter touch with less barriers and requirements than your typical licensing. So things such as no credit or background checks, no fingerprinting, no security bonds, no net worth requirements. Many of the items that typically make licensing a burdensome or lengthy process are not present in our registration, which is why we call it a lighter touch. You may wonder, how do we determine which products that we require registration for? We have a widespread authority, but not all financial products are required to register. We have to go through the rulemaking process to require a financial product or service to register. Some of the ways that we determine this is, one, simply the industry could come to us and ask to be regulated. Maybe they have an innovative product and they feel like there's bad actors in the space, and regulation would help you kind of even the playing field a little bit. We can take those into consideration for registration. We also have processes where we identify industry issues through complaints, investigations, actions taken in other states, or brought to the attention to us by our various external stakeholders. We also take this information into consideration when we are considering if we want to take a step forward and have that financial product or service be required to register. There's also what we call the two-action rule, which is if we take two enforcement actions under the CCFPL law on a substantially similar product, by statute, we are required to initiate registration for that financial product or service. And the last thing that I'll discuss is we could be required by the legislature as well. If there's a bill passed that requires us to register a financial product or service, it can be mandated to us by the legislature. Lastly, we have the authority as well to require reports, collect industry data, and conduct examination of covered persons subject to the CCFPL. Next slide. Now, I've mentioned this term covered persons a couple of times, which gets very confusing to a lot of people. Covered person is defined as any person that engages in offering or providing a consumer financial product or a service to a California resident. That includes any material service provider to the person when offering that product or service. So covered persons are subject to the CCFPL, and then we have the ability to take a subset of those covered persons and require them to register. But covered persons includes registrants and non-registrants. I won't get too much in the weeds of all the different financial products and services that are covered by the CCFPL, but if you're interested in knowing, you can review Financial Code Section 90005K, which outlines what all those financial products and services are covered under CCFPL. Next slide. There are some who are not subject to the CCFPL. There are some exemptions. Licensees who offer or provide financial products or services under the authority of another state agency's license would be exempted. Most licensees acting under the authority of a DFPI license would be exempted. I say most because we do have some of our licensees who are not exempted from the CCFPL. For example, payday lenders operating under the Deferred Deposit Transaction Law are not exempted, as well as debt collectors and student loan servicing under their respective laws. Banks, credit unions, and other organizations operating under the authority of a license from federal law or another state are also exempted from the CCFPL the law. And we're talking about exemptions from the law as a whole. CCFPL will get into specific registration exemptions a little later. Next slide. So this current registration package is our first registration package under our authority under the CCFPL, and it included registration requirements for 4 financial products and services. That was debt settlement, student debt relief services, income-based advances, or better known as earned wage access, and what you would all be most familiar with would be education financing. In going through the rulemaking process, there were invitations to comment in February. The first one was open in February of 2021. There was a second round in November of 2021, and there was a final opportunity for the public to comment in July of 2024 before these regulations were approved by the Office of Administrative Law, October 11th of 2024. When they were approved, they had an effective date of February 15th of 2025. The Nationwide Multi-State Licensing System and Registry, or NMLS, the portal was open to be able to file registration applications on November 1st of 2024. Per the regulations, all providers of these 4 financial products or services were required to file an application through NMLS prior to February 15th of 2025 to continue operating legally in California, offering those financial products or services, which means any providers currently providing or offering to provide any subject products that require registration without an approved registration or a pending application submitted prior to February 15th of this year are not operating in compliance with these regulations. Next slide. Other requirements that you should be aware of. There is a 4-year sunset review, which ultimately means the registration is in effect for basically 4 years, unless the legislature takes an action to extend the registration program, or they could also choose to convert it into a licensing law. If no action is taken, then the registration will expire in approximately 4 years. Costs associated with registration, there is an application fee. It is $350. It is non-refundable and payable at the time that you apply through NMLS. NMLS charges an annual renewal fee of $120 for access to their system. There is an annual registration fee, which is calculated based on a pro rata share of all costs and expenses reasonably incurred in the administration of the registration program. So as with most of the financial services industry, they have to pay for their regulation. This is no different. That pro rata share is calculated based on the gross income from the subject product provided. So we do not divide the different registration types. All registrants are used to calculate the pro rata share, which means, registrants who make more money will pay a higher registration fee than registrants who have lower income. There is a minimum of $500. So if your calculations take you lower than $500, your registration fee would be a minimum of $500. Registration fees would be due each year on December 31st, with the first registration fee being due this year, 12/31/2025. As mentioned before, we also have the ability to conduct examinations. You will be billed for reasonable costs, including travel for examinations. Now, the CCFPL does not require us to examine all registrants, so we will be primarily conducting examinations, risk-based examinations. So it may not examine everyone, but if you are examined, you will be billed for the time and expenses of that exam. Another requirement is there is an annual reporting requirement. It'll be due on March 15th of every year, with the first annual report being due in 2026. Next slide. Now we'll get more into the education financing and who is required to register. So any person providing or offering to provide education financing as defined in the regulations is required to register unless otherwise exempted, and we will speak on the exemptions as well. Education financing is defined as credit extended for the purpose of funding post-secondary education and the cost of attendance at a post-secondary institution, including but not limited to tuition, fees, books and supplies, room and board, transportation, and miscellaneous personal expenses. Education financing is credit extended, and credit is also defined in both the statute and it is also defined in the regulation. And credit is defined as any credit obligation where the related debt involves an obligation to pay money, regardless of whether the obligation is absolute, contingent, fixed, or variable. So if you are deemed to fit this definition of providing or offering to provide education financing, then you are required to register with the DFPI. If education financing is provided or offered to be provided through a third-party partnership, the third party is subject to registration unless otherwise exempted. This includes third-party partnerships with all public, private, and nonprofit post-secondary educational institutions. So if you utilize a third party to provide or offer to provide education financing, we suggest that you confirm they are registered or hold the appropriate license that exempts them from registration because they could be offering education financing without the proper registration or license required at this time. Lastly, income sharing agreements or any agreements with the income-driven repayment provision are also covered, fit the definition of education financing, and providers of those products are also required to register. Next slide. Exemptions to registration. The exemptions that we talked about to the CCFPO law apply. So if you provide education financing under the authority of another state agency's license, then you would be exempted. A licensee providing or offering to provide education financing within the scope of the CFL license or the SALSA license or the Student Loan Servicing Act license would also be exempt. Public and nonprofit post-secondary educational institutions are exempt. And I also would like to point, particularly for smaller schools, there may be an exemption under Financial Code Section 90006E if certain criteria is met. We refer to this exemption as the merchant's exemption, which states a seller of non-financial goods or services that provides a bona fide extension of credit to a consumer for the acquisition of a non-financial good or service may be exempt if all of the following conditions are met. If the credit extended does not significantly exceed the fair market value of the non-financial good or service provided, if the debt is not sold or otherwise assigned, except as to a sale of debt for the purpose of collection, and if 25 or fewer credit transactions are made per year. If all of these are met, it is possible that there is another exemption and you may not be required to register. Next slide. So we received numerous emails and inquiries from BPPE approved schools and others interested in the education financing space. I've jotted down the most common questions and will provide you some answers to them today. The first one is, I'm a school who is approved and regulated with BPPE. Am I exempt from registration? It's my understanding that the BPPE oversees post-secondary educational programs and operating standards, not the financing to pay for the cost of attending such programs. So being a BPPE approved school does not exempt you from registration when providing or offering to provide education financing. Related to this, as a reminder, when submitting your supplemental information with an application, we are more concerned with the education financing offered, not so much the educational program that is provided. So what we've received several applications that are like the business plan is saying more about the education that's provided, not the financing that's provided. We're more concerned about the education financing that you are providing. The most common question probably that we received was related to tuition-only payment plans with no interest or fees. Does that product require registration? The answer is yes. Tuition-only payment plans meet the definition of education financing, and they do require registration. So if anyone who made the determination that they did not meet the definition of education financing or have been waiting for clarification on that to register, yes, you are required to register, and you should get registered as soon as possible. Another common question that we had was in regards to accepting financial aid or other scholarship or grant programs and who would be required to register. Again, the registration is related to education financing, which involves an extension of credit with a repayment obligation. So I don't know much personally about the Title IV financial aid and these grant programs, but if there is no repayment obligation, it's likely not an extension of credit, and you're likely not required to register for accepting those. You're not providing it, and if you accept it, you're likely not required to register. Can I be penalized for failing to register by February 15th, 2025? So if, again, effective February 15th, 2025, if you are offering education financing without registering with the DFPI, you are doing so in violation of the regulations. So clearly, if you're in violation, could you be penalized? Yes, you could be penalized. So the DFPI recommends that you seek the legal counsel and decide if you need to register as soon as possible. What the DFPI will do, and what my program will do, as we are reviewing applications, we will review them on a case-by-case basis to determine if a referral to enforcement for enforcement action is warranted. And we will take all circumstances into consideration. We understand several schools have expressed that they had no knowledge of the registration requirements. They may not have received any of the notifications. Many of them were unclear on the definition of education financing, particularly with tuition-only payment plans. We will take all of those things into consideration when making decisions on regards to penalties, and we plan to be as lenient as we possibly can. Again, I don't make those final decisions on whether we want to penalize or not, but I can tell you what my program is going to do in regards to the referral, and we plan to be as lenient and on a case-by-case basis, take all of that into consideration. Next slide. Lastly, I'm just going to provide you some additional resources for information. For information on how to register, it's outlined right on our website at dfpi.ca.gov. The covered persons page, CCFPL information for new registrants page, and coming soon, there will be an education financing specific page. It's in development right now. Those will all be pages that will provide you the most wealth of information. You can also subscribe for CCFPL related notices that we will send in the future on our website. My light went off on me. If you have questions, you can email them to ccfpl.inquiries@dfpi.ca.gov, or you can call our 866-275-2677 number if you want to speak with someone live. There is a directory using that number. You will be looking for the new covered persons program when using that directory if you have questions through the phone. Lastly, there will be a notice distributed via email to all BPPE approved schools, which will include links to all relevant web pages and information that will be coming out soon. I'm just waiting for the website to be updated. Once the website is updated, it'll include the links to the all relevant pages there for the information and resources that you would need to make the decisions that need to be made in regards to registration. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation today. And so we can open the floor for any questions that you may all have.
Thank you so much. We'll start with the committee members if anyone has any questions.
I have a quick question. Thank you so much. This is so helpful from a consumer standpoint as well. And I wanted to ask, is there a way to find out when an entity whether an entity has applied or not, because I, deal with situations where I'm trying to figure out if a educational institution or a debt collector or somebody else has applied because they aren't listed yet as a registered entity.
Great question. Yes, you can go right to our website. There is a search function for regulated industries, and it will allow you to filter for the different laws that we administer. And you can check right on there. You can check if they have an approved registration or a pending registration. They should
Great.
all be listed there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions from committee members? Apparently you answered everything in your presentation like you expected. So excellent.
It's always the goal, right?
Thank you very much. It's super helpful. I think, even though this is sort of not related to every single institution covered by the BPPE, it's helpful for us to understand the different requirements that the institutions are facing. So I really appreciate the information and the points about, especially the FAQs, super helpful.
Awesome. And thank you again, Debbie, for the opportunity to speak. I think this is helpful to get the word out. And going forward, hopefully we can do this in the future as well.
We will open item number 8 up for public comment. It's the presentation by the DFPI on the new registration requirements for post-secondary education financing.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can press *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much for being here, both of you. We appreciate it. We are at the very end, amazingly enough. We kind of powered through today. Agenda item number 9 is future agenda items. So if any committee members have any suggestions or for agenda items for future meetings, this is your chance. Okay, hearing none, we will open up item number 9 for public comment. If there is anyone from the public who would like to make a comment about a future agenda item.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can press *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Okay, well, thank you all thank you to the committee members for being here. Thank you to everyone from the BPPE for being here and for the really informative presentations, and for all of the external partners from DCA and DFPI and everywhere else. We really appreciate it, and we are adjourned until the August meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.